has referenced Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur in many places, in all his books. So just one reference I will just quote, and then we'll hear something from his biography. This is from the 3rd canto, 22nd chapter, 19th verse. It is describing Kardama Muni accepting to marry the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, Devahuti, because it was his duty to populate the universe as a Prajapati, as ordered by his father. So, the verse says, of course spoken by Kardama Muni, "Therefore I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife, on the condition that after she bears semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service accepted by the most perfect human beings." That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from envy. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Kardama Muni expressed his desire for a very beautiful wife to Emperor Swayambhuva and accepted the emperor's daughter for marriage. Kardama Muni was in the hermitage practicing complete celibacy as a brahmachari. And although he had the desire to marry, he did not want to be a householder. The first part of life should be utilized in brahmacharya for the development of character and spiritual qualities. In the next part of life, one may accept a wife and beget children, but one should not beget children like cats and dogs. Kardama Muni wanted to beget a child who would be a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should beget a child who can perform the duties of Vishnu. Otherwise, there is no need to produce children. There are two kinds of children born of good fathers. One is educated in Krishna consciousness so that he can be delivered from the clutches of Maya in that very life. And the other is a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and teaches the world the ultimate goal of life. So two kinds of children, good children, Sat Santana. A father can beget, a human father. So one is to train the child in Krishna consciousness so that the child will grow up and be delivered from the clutches of Maya. The second one is to produce a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can teach the whole world the ultimate goal of life. Just as Kardama Muni Kardama Muni begot such a child, Kapila, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enunciated the philosophy of Sankhya. Great householders pray to God to send his representative so that there may be an auspicious movement in human society. This is one reason to beget a child. So later in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in the same order as Kardama Muni, about 100 years ago, Thakur Bhaktivinod also wanted to beget a child who could preach the philosophy and teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the fullest extent. By his prayers to the Lord, he had as his child Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya throughout the entire world through his bona fide disciples. So exactly like Kardama Muni prayed to the Supreme Lord and begot Lord Kapila. Same way, Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur prayed to the Supreme Lord and begot Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So that is the position of the Acharyas. Their life is ideal, that they themselves execute pure devotional service and they also teach others how to execute pure devotional service by their own example and by their powerful preaching. So, Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur led an ideal life of constant engagement in devotional service, and he taught by his powerful preaching and his own example how one can engage in devotional service to perfect one's life. He is known for many different contributions, virtually unlimited contribution he has done for the Krishna consciousness movement. He has written many books explaining the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in a very simple, direct method. If we try to study the original scriptures, because we are far removed from the Vedic culture, we can't understand, even though it is explained very clearly and nicely, we cannot understand many of the principles. And even if somebody understands, they don't know how to apply in the modern context. So our recent acharyas, they have lived a life dedicated for Krishna consciousness, and by their example and by their writings, by their teachings, they are instructing us how we can also lead a life of Krishna consciousness and become eligible to go back to Godhead. So Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur's writing in the biography, it is mentioned, during the time of his 2-year preaching furlough means he took a break from his duties. He was a district magistrate and he was wanted by so many British officers who thought that if Bhaktivinod Thakur can come to their jurisdiction, then he will perfectly administer justice and he will ensure that there is peace in the entire district. So, because he wanted to write books, which he was doing even when he was working, but he wanted to write a lot more. So he took a 2-year kind of holiday from his duties, and he wrote several books during that 2-year period. In 1892, he published short excerpts in pamphlet form of an earlier published work called Vaishnava Siddhanta Mala. The pamphlets were based mainly on the portion of the book which deals with the glories of the holy name, and they were given titles like Sri Harinama, Sri Nama, Sri Nama Mahima, Sri Nama Prachara, and Sri Nama Tattva. See, chanting the holy name is the most important part of our practice, and the whole philosophy of why we should chant and how we should chant and what are the benefits of chanting, how chanting helps us to advance in Krishna consciousness, how chanting will lead by itself to the ultimate goal of life. Everything is explained in these pamphlets published by Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur. They were distributed to the people as part of Thakur's Namhatta program. He had a very elaborate organization called Namhatta, means marketplace of the holy name. Why marketplace of the holy name? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, just like when you go to the market, anybody can purchase whatever they want if they give the proper currency. Similarly, he wanted to establish a marketplace for the holy name of Krishna. And he explains that the only price one has to pay is a little bit of Shraddha or faith. So, like this, he established for preaching the importance of Krishna consciousness, particularly the importance of chanting the holy name. He established many, many different Namhattas all over Bengal and Orissa. Under his guidance, so many different groups of preaching centers were established, and these pamphlets were distributed to all the people. Also in 1892, the Thakur published a book called Shriman Mahaprabhur Shiksha, a book of 11 chapters summarizing Lord Chaitanya's philosophy in 10 major categories. The first chapter presented the 10 categories, and the succeeding 10 discussed each category individually. There are profuse Sanskrit quotations to substantiate each point, as well as Bengali prose, translations, and explanations. In 1893, the real deluge occurred. Deluge means a flood. So many books came out. He wrote Tattva Viveka or Satchidananda Bhuti, Satchidananda Anubhuti, which was a presentation of the teachings of the greatest Vaishnava Acharyas in relation to the ideas of famous Western and Oriental philosophers. Because the British was ruling, people were being influenced by Western philosophy. But Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur explained what is the Vedic understanding as presented by our great acharyas about the philosophy of the Westerners. So he wrote so many books like this to explain the real correct philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Then came Sharanagati, Gita Mala, and Gitavali, 3 small songbooks which perfectly expressed in simple Bengali the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and the lofty realizations and sentiments of a self-realized soul. So in simple Bengali, he has explained, just like the song we sang, Vaishnava Thakura. In 2 lines, he has explained 4 verses of the Upadeshamrita. Chaya Bega Domi, Chaya Dosha Shodhi, Chaya Guna Deho Dase, Chaya Satsanga Deho Yamare, Boshe Chi Sangera Ashe. The first 4 verses, not only first 4 verses, even the later verses are explained in just 4 lines. So this is the power of his writing. He wrote a Sanskrit poem of Lord Chaitanya called Sri Godruma Chandra Bhajanopadesha, 2 more songbooks entitled Baula Sangita and Dalaler Gita, and a booklet in English entitled Nama Bhajana about the holy name of Krishna. He also wrote a monumental novel called Jaiva Dharma, which covered the entire spectrum of Gaudiya Vaishnava thought and answered almost every conceivable question that an inquisitive and intelligent soul could ever think to ask. He also wrote Tattva Sutram, a book of Sanskrit aphorisms with Sanskrit explanations and Bengali commentary. He thus produced 10 significant works, one of them of major proportions, all in 1 year. And meanwhile, he was lecturing, chanting, and preaching to whomever he met. We can begin to understand from all this, his holy activity, what Gaura Shakti Swarupa really means. In our Pranam mantra to Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur, we say Gaura Shakti Swarupaya. What does it mean? He is an embodiment of the transcendental energy of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, who has come exclusively for preaching Krishna consciousness. Now, that same energy of Lord Chaitanya for preaching was the energy with which Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur preached Krishna consciousness. Similarly, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada presented 17 volumes of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita with full commentary in English in 18 months, while spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, personally describing such work as materially impossible. All these acharyas, what they've done is materially not possible, only because they are empowered by Lord Chaitanya personally. Therefore, they are able to do such extraordinary work. So, the author of this biography is telling Prabhupada's immense outpouring of transcendental literature can be compared favorably to Srila Sachidananda Bhaktivinod Thakur's. The same way, Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur wrote so many books while engaged actively in preaching, in practicing, in writing, in studying, in guiding devotees. Same way, Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, also worked, wrote books, and preached and guided so many thousands of people. It is said about Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur, he used to receive bullock cart loads of letters. Those days, that was the postal system. British had established a postal system. So wherever he used to live, the final thing, the final delivery would happen by hand post. Right? Even now, I mean, till recently, this was the system, right? Hand post, they come and deliver. But his number of letters was so big, it was not possible to do hand delivery. So what would the post office do? They would put all that in one bullock cart. Huge bullock cart load of letters every day he would receive. This is empowered Acharya. And he would reply to every single letter. This is called Acharya. And because he is busy answering those letters, not that all other work has stopped. This is in the middle of his chanting, taking care of the family, writing books. Everything else would go on. So, it is impossible to imagine how he did so much. Same way, Srila Prabhupada, 11 years only, he established this Hare Krishna movement, Krishna Kanjan movement, it's called movement. What all he did in those 11 years? He traveled the globe 14 times. He wrote 70 volumes of books. Only 3 were published before he began this movement. 3 or 4, I would say. Other than that, everything else he wrote later. He initiated 10,000 disciples. He established 108 Radha Krishna temples all over the world in major cities. So like this, the work of such great acharyas is only because they are personally empowered by Lord Chaitanya. Only then it is possible. It is impossible. Okay, just to get an idea about what was the kind of daily schedule that Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur followed. His daily schedule. He was never idle. He had no free time. Being always engaged in the service of the Lord. This is described by Sri Rupa Goswami as avyartha kalatvam. One of the symptoms of a very, very advanced devotee on the bhava stage is avyartha kalatvam. That means he does not waste even one moment of time. Throughout the day, 24 hours he is engaged. Now hear this. Between 7:30 and 8 p.m. he would go to bed. Between 7:30 and 8 p.m. This is where the daily schedule begins. He would then rise just before 10 p.m. How many hours he would sleep? 2 or 2.5 hours he would sleep. Light his oil lamp. Those days there was no electricity. He would light his oil lamp and write books until 4 a.m. How many hours writing? At night? 6 hours. 6 hours writing. We all sleep 6 hours. He is writing 6 hours. Then he would again rest for a maximum of half an hour. At 4:30 a.m., he would wash his hands and face, sit down and chant on his beads. He never showed his beads to anyone, but would chant on them constantly as time permitted. At 7 a.m., that means 4:30 to 7. How many hours he would chant? Hmm? 2.5 hours he would chant. At 7 a.m. he answered all correspondence. And 7:30 read various religious and philosophical works. And 8:30 he received visitors, if any, or else continued to read until 9:30. Sometimes he would, at that time, he would walk back and forth on the veranda of his house, contemplating different religious questions and solving them in his mind. Sometimes he would solve them aloud, as if preaching to some unseen guest. He would briefly rest from 9:30 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., then take bath and breakfast, which usually consisted of half a quart of milk, 2 chapatis and some fruit. And how much time would he take for taking bath, taking his breakfast? 10 minutes. How much rest he would take? 15 minutes. 9:30 to 9:45 rest. 9:45 to 9:55 he would take bath and breakfast. 5 minutes. That's all. At 9:55 the Thakur would don his uniform and leave for court in his carriage. He was a district magistrate, so he would wear the uniform of the court. As a magistrate, he wore coat and pants. On his neck were 6 strands of large tulsi beads, 6 rounds, tulsi beads, large tulsi beads. He was resolute in his court decisions and would decide a case immediately, not tolerating any humbug. He did his business and left. He shaved his head monthly and never cared what anyone thought of it. The lawyers and Englishmen were astounded by the Thakur's capacity for work. At 10 a.m., court began. He would hear between 30 and 50 cases per day. Yet he finished by 1 p.m. 10 to 1. How many hours? 3 hours. he would hear 30 to 50 cases. 30 cases in 3 hours means 1 hour, 10 cases. 6 minutes per case, average. Because some will be less, some will be more, but average. What took other magistrates 1/2 hour, he finished in 5 minutes. He took another 2 minutes to write the judgment in detail. Some of his British superiors became envious and tried to discourage him, but he was not affected. At 1 p.m., he went home, refreshed himself, then returned to work from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. 1 hour would refresh himself, take some lunch, take some rest. Okay, get ready, again come back exactly at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. again he would do his work. Every evening after his court duties, Bhaktivinod Thakur would translate some Sanskrit religious work into Bengali by dictating it to a secretary. That means in the morning he himself would write. He didn't have any secretary in the morning. Evening, it would be a little faster when a secretary would take notes. Then there was an evening bath and meal consisting of a little rice, 2 chapatis and another half quart of milk. Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur worked with a pocket watch so that everything he did was on schedule. Despite his heavy domestic and official responsibilities, Bhaktivinod Thakur's every moment was embellished with an intense desire to render service to the Lord. So 5 o'clock he would return, till 7:30 he would translate Sanskrit religious work to Bengali by dictating to a secretary. Then after 7:30 he takes rest and then again gets up, 10 o'clock works. Continuously working for Krishna consciousness, spreading Krishna consciousness. So like this, the acharyas are empowered to practice, preach, write, instruct, guide, establish. Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur, he discovered the lost place of the actual birthplace of Lord Chaitanya called Yogapit. What happens in Bengal is the river Ganga is flowing in so many parts. It divides into so many tributaries. Ganga is a very, very huge river, perennial river. So it divides into huge tributaries as the terrain changes. Supposing it's flowing through flat land, and then suddenly a big mountain is there. So the river can split into different tributaries round the mountain. And again, the tributaries may join, may not join. All depends on terrain. So like this, the Ganga, especially in Navadvip area, branches off into so many tributaries. But because of that, there are 9 islands called Navadvip. Navadvip means 9 islands. Islands are formed because of this Ganga distributing into so many tributaries. So, as the river keeps flowing, there is some soil erosion. Means some part of land will become covered by water. And soil erosion happens in such a way that formerly what was covered by water will become again surfaced as some land. So the shifting course of this flow of the Ganga river and its tributaries, because of which some places can become lost over a period of 50 or 100 years. So, what was originally the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, sometime in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 1486. And Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur was in the early part of, later part of 1800, 1850 onwards. So nearly, say, 400 years, the shifting course of the Ganga, the actual birthplace was covered, and people used to worship, the followers of Chaitanya used to worship some other place as the Yoga Pita. So Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur referred to so many maps, and from the Siddha Purushas, from the perfected devotees, he understood the actual birthplace was somewhere else. That was known to very, very few people. So he got hold of British maps and actually pointed out that the actual Yoga Pita was somewhere else, and he discovered that Yoga Pita, and he confirmed it by taking his own spiritual master, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, to that place to establish it is the actual place of birth, which is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what happened? As soon as, because Jagannath Babaji Maharaj was very, very old. It is said Jagannath Babaji Maharaj lived for 200 years. So you can imagine how old he was. When Bhaktivinod Thakur actually took him, he carried him in a basket on his head. His body was completely deformed. He could not even sit up. So he had to be taken like a bundle of bones and skin in a basket. That was his condition. That Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj agreed to go that place. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur personally carried on his head and walked all the way from wherever he was staying in Navadvip to that place, Yogapit. And then as soon as he was brought to that place and kept on the ground, immediately Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur began Sankirtan with his followers. As soon as Sankirtan began, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj jumped out of the basket and started dancing in ecstasy. Confirmed that that was the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So extraordinary miracles happened in the life of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And that also established Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj as a bona fide spiritual master. Because very, very, very less was known about him. He was living by himself in one of the holy places in Navadvip. And he was always engaged in chanting. Whoever went to him, he instructed, he taught. But he would not go actively outside and preach. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur identified Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj as the pure devotee Acharya, the link in the disciplic succession after Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan. So that is the work of the Acharya also, to establish the disciplic succession, parampara. Otherwise, so many bogus people claim we are followers of Lord Chaitanya. We are in parampara from Chaitanya. But they are not strictly following the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. They are indulging in so many deviations. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur identified Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj as the pure devotee Acharya in the parampara. And he he gives the credit of revealing the Yoga Pita to Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Gaura Avirbhava Bhumestvam Nirdeshta Sajjana Priyaha Vaishnava Sarabhaumaha Sri Jagannathayate Namaha. The pranam mantra for Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj is offered, glorifying him as Gaura Avirbhava Bhumehe Tvam. That means you revealed the actual birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. You revealed the actual birthplace. The work was done by whom? By Bhaktivinod Thakur. Of course, it was confirmed by Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. But the credit the Acharya offers to his Guru, his Acharya. So like this, extraordinary work was done by Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur. He identified one bogus incarnation, Bishika Shen. He claimed he was an avatar of Vishnu. He had some minor mystic powers because which people used to worship him. And he declared himself, I am avatar of Vishnu. And so many people were getting cheated. So the British rulers at that time, in that part of Bengal, were receiving so many complaints. This fellow is exploiting young women, performing rasa dance. He claims he is Krishna and he can dance with young girls, married or unmarried, without any restriction. So foolish people used to say, oh, he is God. Then Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur, he went on the order of the then government, and first he didn't actually arrest him. He went and spoke to him that why are you imitating the Supreme Lord and claiming to be an avatar? You are not an avatar. What is the proof, Shastric proof that you are an avatar? And where are the characteristics of God in your personality? So that fellow could understand that, oh, Bhaktivinod Thakur is no ordinary person. So, in front of his followers, he told him, I know who you are. You are district magistrate, Kedarnath Datta. And you are a very nice person. So you have my blessings. Like that he said, and impressed all the innocent people. So see, he's God. He knows who he is. Because Bhaktivinod Thakur never introduced himself. So he could identify, oh, he is Bhaktivinod Thakur's name before his spiritual initiation was Kedarnath Datta. So he told his name. He said, you're district magistrate in this place. And said, you're doing good work. You're a pious person. Blessed him. So all foolish people thought he is God. They never believed what Bhaktivinod Thakur was telling. So finally, Bhaktivinod Thakur got him arrested by following the procedure of law based on the complaint that he had received. And when he was arrested in the jail, he was protesting, and his followers were protesting outside the jail. Thousands and lakhs of people. I don't know how many people. Huge number of people. And in Bhaktivinod Thakur's house, his daughter developed high fever. And the fever was not coming down, whatever medicines were being administered. So many people were advising Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur, your daughter has got this fever because you arrested that avatar. So please release him, otherwise your daughter will die. Bhaktivinod Thakur's reply was, I don't mind if my daughter dies. But I'm not going to spare this bogus guy. I'm going to punish him according to the law. So, so much, you can imagine how much of anxiety his family members will have, his well-wishers will have, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's well-wishers, his own wife, everybody was so much in anxiety. What's going to happen to his daughter? But finally, the daughter recovered, and then he was brought for final trial. Arrest was based on prima facie complaints, and then the final trial. So then so much evidence was gathered that he's actually a bogus fellow. So meantime, in the jail, this fellow, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, ordered that his head be shaved. He had long hair. Because some of these people, they carry that power in their hair. So he ordered the head to be shaved. The barber who was supposed to go and shave, he feared that something will happen to him. He refused to go and shave. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur personally went and shaved his head. So then, after his head was shaved, all his mystic power is over. He committed suicide in the jail before even he could be tried. So which proved that he was a bogus fellow. This is the work of the Acharya. You see? So Acharyas are empowered personalities directly coming from the spiritual world. They're coming directly from the spiritual world. And their work is very self-evident. Nobody need have any doubt about the extraordinary preaching activity they perform. Nobody need have doubt. Even the hardcore materialists will have to agree that their work is humanly impossible. Humanly impossible. Nobody can do such work. No karmi, jnani, yogi, nobody can do such work. Greatest tapasvi cannot do so much work in terms of preaching Krishna consciousness. The greatest contribution is the preaching of Krishna consciousness to so many people, all varieties of people, most ordinary people. They take up Krishna consciousness and become first-class devotees. That is only possible because of the empowered acharyas. Empowered acharyas. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is such an empowered acharya. So we pray to him. By his blessings, we will be able to nicely practice Krishna consciousness and make quick advancement in perfecting our bhakti. So we offered prayers to him. So we seek his blessings. So rest of the day we meditate on his wonderful activities, contributions. And you can read Prabhupada's glorification of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in so many places. I'll stop here. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Prabhupada ki jai.